Sirens gave way to fire. Iranian ballistic missiles struck central Tel Aviv in what Iranian military commanders are calling the most expansive aerial offensive ever launched against Israel, surpassing, by Tehran's own account, the entire scope of last June's 12-day war in just 48 hours. Footage broadcast by Iran's state-run Press TV, subsequently verified by Associated Press photographers on the ground, showed multiple explosions tearing through densely populated streets. Thick columns of black smoke rose over what municipal officials confirmed were residential blocks. Firefighters worked through the night, responding to scorched vehicles and structural collapses across central Israel. Israel's Magen David Adom rescue service confirmed at least 11 fatalities as of the latest available figures. Tel Aviv's city municipality, citing damage surveys filed with Haaretz, recorded at least 40 buildings struck in a single night of strikes. Among the dead, a Philippine caregiver who did not reach a shelter in time, killed when a complete, unintercepted Iranian ballistic missile, not fragments, not debris, but an intact warhead, struck adjacent to her apartment building, leaving a crater investigators are still measuring. Ibrahim Zulfikari, spokesperson for Iran's Joint Army and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Coordination Center, announced that within 48 hours, Iranian forces had struck 60 strategic targets and 500 military positions linked to U.S. and Israeli operations. More than 700 drones and hundreds of ballistic missiles were deployed across the campaign. They have achieved more in the past 48 hours alone in their battle with the invading enemies than was accomplished throughout the entire 12-day war, Zulfikari stated. The figures have not been independently verified. Iranian media separately claimed a strike on what Tehran described as the largest U.S. early warning radar installation in the Persian Gulf, a facility it valued at $1.1 billion with a stated detection range of 5,000 kilometers. As of publication, the Pentagon has issued no confirmation or denial of that claim. The presence of an intact ballistic missile at a civilian impact site in Tel Aviv has raised urgent questions about the performance ceiling of Israel's layered air defense architecture. Iron Dome, Israel's short to medium range intercept system, was designed primarily to neutralize shorter range rockets fired in high volume from Gaza and southern Lebanon. Long-range Iranian ballistic missiles, particularly those traveling at hypersonic adjacent speeds with depressed flight trajectories, operate at the outer boundary of what that system was engineered to engage. Israel has not publicly addressed the missile crater. The Israel Defense Forces confirmed interceptions were conducted throughout the night, but did not specify rates or totals. In an unusual departure from standard diplomatic communication, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghei, Khamenei did not address the media from a ministry podium. He spoke from inside what Tehran identified as a school struck by Israeli airstrikes, an image that Iran's state broadcaster pushed globally within hours of the attack. Standing amid visible structural damage, Khamenei challenged the legal basis of the U.S.-Israeli military posture directly. Which imminent threat? He alleged that in addition to the school, Iranian hospitals in Tehran and Avaz, a sports stadium in Lamerd, and Iran's national broadcasting organization had all been targeted by coalition strikes. None of those specific allegations have been independently confirmed. Khamenei invoked international law, the UN Charter, and the right to self-defense, stating, "We have been subjected to military aggression. We have the right to defend. We have the duty to defend ourselves." He called on the UN Security Council to compel the U.S. and Israel to end their offensive, adding that any nation providing material assistance to the aggressors would be regarded as a combatant party. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, speaking separately to a U.S. television network, said a diplomatic resolution remains achievable while calling the ongoing military buildup unnecessary and unhelpful. The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia have both formally stated they will not permit their airspace, territory, or territorial waters to be used for offensive strikes against Iran. a constraint analysts say has materially narrowed Washington's operational geography and elevated the strategic importance of U.S. assets positioned at Israel's Ovda Air Base in the southern Negev. Open-source flight tracking analysts confirmed 12 F-22 Raptor stealth fighters departed RAF Lakenheath in England earlier this week, bound for the region. 11 landed at Ovda. One returned to the UK due to a reported technical issue. A separate batch of 12 F-22s subsequently arrived at Lakenheath, with trackers noting additional. Deployments remain unconfirmed. If completed, the total number of American stealth air superiority fighters in the theater could reach 24, an unusual concentration outside of named exercises. Missar Vision, a Chinese commercial satellite firm with reported ties to military-linked enterprises, published imagery this week appearing to show the Ovda deployment alongside a Patriot air defense battery positioned at the base perimeter. The firm also released satellite imagery of U.S. tanker aircraft at a Saudi base, force posture at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, 22 aircraft including 160 KC-135 tankers at Prince Sultan Air Base, and a reported THAAD system at Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. Beijing's posture has sharpened in parallel with the military escalation. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning, responding to a direct question from Iran's state broadcaster IRIB about whether China would support Iran if the U.S. attacked, stated, "China supports the Iranian government and people in upholding their nation's stability and legitimate rights and interests. We firmly oppose the use or threat of force in international relations." The statement was issued on the same day Iranian and American delegations met in Geneva for a third round of nuclear negotiations, a coincidence of timing that Western analysts described as deliberate signaling. Reuters, citing 6 people with knowledge of the negotiations, reported this week that Iran is close to finalizing a deal with China for the purchase of CM-302 supersonic anti-ship cruise missiles. The weapon carries a range of approximately 290 kilometers and is designed to fly low and at high speed to defeat shipborne defense systems. 2 independent weapons analysts told Reuters the transfer would significantly enhance Iran's capacity to threaten naval vessels in the region, including the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, currently operating in the Arabian Sea, and the USS Gerald Ford in the Eastern Mediterranean, which together carry more than 5,000 personnel and roughly 150 aircraft. China's foreign ministry told Reuters it had no knowledge of the reported negotiations. China's defense ministry did not respond. The third round of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks convened in Geneva even as missiles were in flight over Tel Aviv, an arrangement that reflects both the urgency of the diplomatic track and its fragility. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has stated publicly that Iran is approximately 1 week from possessing the material necessary for nuclear weapon construction, a timeline Iran's foreign ministry has rejected as, in Khamenei's words, a constant barrage of lies and endless deception. Khamenei pointed to the June 2025 Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, strikes that Tel Aviv and Washington said rendered Iran's enrichment capability inoperable, as evidence that the 1 week claim is logically inconsistent. Ever since they launched an attack on our nuclear facilities and declared they had completely wiped them out.
Nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Atomic bombs.
So how can it be claimed that Iran has only 1 week left to produce the necessary materials? President Trump issued a 10-day ultimatum to Iran on February 19, 2026, demanding a nuclear agreement or facing military action. As of this report, that window is closing. The trajectory of the conflict now rests on 3 pressure points: whether Geneva produces a workable framework before the ultimatum expires, whether the Saudi UAE airspace restriction holds against U.S. diplomatic pressure, and whether China's reported CM-302 transfer is completed before any military pause takes effect. Tehran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched large-scale ground and naval exercises along Iran's southern coast in the days before the Geneva talks. A signal, analysts said, that Iran intends to negotiate from a position of demonstrated military capability rather than diplomatic vulnerability. What is no longer in dispute, the operational ceiling of the current conflict has risen sharply since June 2025. The defense architecture protecting Israel's civilian population has been visibly tested, and the diplomatic channel in Geneva is now racing against a military timeline neither side fully controls.